to move on to the session looking at how people in the project are controlling their bracken. So I'm going to share presentations. So we've got Fiona and David Daly, got Adam Crow and Nat Marsden, who's very kindly agreed to come on tonight and share what they're doing. Also Paul Renison from husband and wife partnership, Nick and Paul, and they're doing some pretty good stuff as well, but they are on holiday in Greece, so they've sent a video and some photographs, and I'm going to share those with you now as well. So I'm going to start and share my slide, and I'll go first and talk through Paul Renison stuff, and then we'll go from there. So a little bit of a technical setup. Can everybody see the slides? Oh, Jane's not in. Thanks, Jane. Can you see just a word saying Bracken and exclamation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so going to move it on. Is it moved on yet?
Not yet.
Oh, that's
got some nice horses there.
isn't that lovely?
Yeah. So so some of you might know, I've just put this picture in just for a bit of just of interest really. So I'm not from the north at all. I've come to the north for work basically. But yeah, I'm from the Midlands, and specifically I live just on the side of the set of hills called the Malvern Hills, which are an AONOB. And those on the Malvern Hills, historically, there never used to be a bracken problem, or I didn't think they did when I was a little kid. But now they're sort of is developing. So they've actually started trying to control the bracken by these two horses pulling this roller. So I thought that was quite interesting. I thought it would just get us started. So yeah, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a sort of insight into what Paul and Nick Renison are doing. So they're up at Rennick in Cumbria. They're part of the carbon calling team. They're quite out there, you know, they're having sort of quite a lot of presence with their farm and how they're sort of turning their farm into more regenerative and more sympathetic and environmentally friendly and stuff with what they're doing. They're pasture for life certified with their suckler herd, which is about 100 Aberdeen Angus cows, if I remember rightly. And they've got a bit of a bracken problem, but they are trying to slowly work on it. So they have sent me a video, which I'll set off now. If everybody puts their volume on maximum, I'm hoping you'll be able to hear what Paul and Nick are saying. If you can't hear very well, we'll perhaps do it again, or well, let's set it off and see if people can hear.
Hi, here we have one of our very extensive bracken beds that we're trying to manage, non-chemically and non-mechanically. So what we're doing is getting salt licks, because they always like a bit of salt, and just come up here every now and again and move these salt blocks around into a fresh bit of tall bracken, and then the cows will come, do a load of trampling, then you move the salt again and they do a load of trampling and keep on doing it. And then hopefully next year the bracken in here will be a lot less. We'll be able to, there'll be a lot more grazing.
So we put them in here this morning, just now, didn't we? And already the bracken is...
We've already done a bit of bracken back. Come on.
Oh, they love it.
They love their salt, they do.
So could anybody hear what they were saying?
Yep, we could hear. I could hear them.
Ah, brilliant. Okay. So yeah, basically they've just been starting to put salt out in key places, and cows have been going mad for it and been doing lots of really good trampling. Now, Paul did send me a message saying one of the things that he's found really surprising was that if he put the salt at the top of the bank, the cattle actually managed to move it down themselves, slay themselves. So I thought that was quite an interesting bit. So this here is an area that historically has been pretty bad for bracken. They grazed it in early July, and this photograph was taken early part of this week, and they're now about to bale graze it again now, so you can just see a couple of the bales up there. But this is sort of a bit more of a closer up shot, so it's showing some good knockback and takeout. But this picture, I hope you can see really clearly, because this is probably the picture which shows how well it's worked. So there was actually a fence line where my mouse is moving around, which I hope you can see. So the left-hand side hasn't had any salt lick or bracken control, whereas the right-hand side has. And this is only from 1 year of the cows being given salt in key areas and moving it around and just using them as messing it about. So they're trying to do it without any mechanics and without any sprays or anything as well, just by using the animals. So I think they're pretty excited about it, really. And then one thing I should add is that on the right hand side as well, Paul did spread some seed out a few weeks ago as well. So hopefully that will sort of add a bit more competition too. So that's about as much as I can tell you from what they've told me, but I thought it was quite an interesting example of what's been happening with just salt.
Just to back that up, Rob, like I've seen that after the winter grazed it when they've had their young stock on there, and it's amazing after 12 months what it looks like. Like you can actually see it from the top of the hill where the bales were rolled out.
Really?
Like you don't believe it unless you actually see it, but yeah, it's really impressive.
Thanks for chipping that in, chat. Just to let someone else in. So hopefully Adam is still online. So are you there, Adam? If you unmute yourself.
I am.
Brilliant. There he is. So I'll introduce Adam. I think he's pretty familiar to most of you. He's very lucky that he lives over near Ulverston in Cumbria, very beautiful part of the world. He hosted an event 2 or 3 weeks ago, didn't you? Where which Amy went to, and that's where we heard about your endeavours, and then managed to rope you into tonight. So I'm going to hand over to Adam, and I'll move on to your first photograph, Adam, and let you chat us through.
Apologies for the quality of the photographs to start off with, because my phone camera isn't very good. But and also I'm a little bit croaky tonight. I just wanted to step back a minute and ask, why do we want to control Bracken? I guess it's fairly obvious, but I think it's fairly obvious from a productivity point of view, but it's not. Bracken is habitat as well. I think what we've got on the farm here would be a case of we're trying to reduce the dominance of Bracken. We're maybe not trying to get rid of it altogether, because so we've got about 48 hectares of intake fell, so it's not common land, it's just ours, which is pretty well infested. There's some really, really dense beds of bracken up there, but it's tending towards wood pasture in places. It's got mires, it's got some open grassier bits, it's got some really heather and some really heathery bits towards the top, and we've also got on neighbouring lands Duke of Burgundy butterflies, which this isn't. This is a ringlet, I think, from when I saw it. But just kind of taking a step back and saying we're doing it partly from a productivity point of view, but partly from a wildlife point of view as well. We want to reduce the dominance of the bracken, break up the litter layer, make it less dense, but maybe not get rid of it entirely. And the next slide was just a pretty flower. Terrible picture of a nice flower called Grass of Parnassus that kind of likes damp, flushy bits, of which we've got quite a bit, and we saw quite a bit of this flowering this year. There's a slide later on, which is another really bad photo of a quadrat, because we're changing our management on the fell. The sheep have come off, and we're going to be wintering cattle on there instead of grazing sheep up there in the summer. So that's a major management change that we're making with that land. And so we got some funding through Farming and Protected Landscapes to have a survey methodology created for us, basically, so that we can go probably once a year and do a little bit of botanical survey to try to get a bit of measurement of how the changes that we're making are actually affecting the vegetation up there. So that's including some fixed point photos to try and get an idea of bracken cover, and some quadrats where we'll be looking at, not in massive detail, but in some detail as to what species are there within the sward. And what we're hoping is that we're going to see a greater abundance and diversity of species in the sward and less bracken, basically. Do you want to move it on, Rob? I can't remember what slide's coming next. This will be exciting. Yeah, that's a cow. So we've got some red poll cattle and a few lean cross cattle. Who?
Sorry to interrupt, Adam. Rob, is your screen zoomed in? Because I can't see anything but right at the top of a cow's back.
I can see the cat. I can see a cow and a lovely calf, and then a lovely backdrop.
Maybe it's just me then. Sorry.
Don't worry. Is anyone else around you can sort of? Is anyone else just seeing a cow and a calf?
No, I'm seeing the whole thing.
Yeah, I've got a cow and a calf.
I've got a cow and a
Yeah.
calf.
Oh,
My bad. Sorry.
Leave and come back, chap.
So I didn't have a picture of cows on the fell at the time that Rob asked. We have actually just put cows and calves onto the fell. So we kind of started that experiment and that regime. And really, they're going to have the run of the fell. At the moment, they're actually electric fenced into the bottom of it just because we're really busy. We don't want to have to go and find them. But that's going to come down quite soon and they're going to have the run of it. So it'll be interesting to see where they go and what they do. I think maybe move on another slide, Rob, please.
Adam, just a quick one.
Yeah.
Sorry, has that been led by you guys, or has it also been led by Natural England as well, who want more cattle than sheep, or is it a joint thing?
I guess it was a meeting in the middle, really. When we moved to the farm, I've been quite keen on the idea of having one flock of sheep rather than two. So at the moment, we've got Swaledales, which their job was the fell, and mules, which had the lowland ground. We're really trying to simplify things as much as we can so that we can kind of fit our family life around the farm a little bit more easily. Both me and Helen have got a conservation background, so we're interested in doing this stuff anyway. Should have said that at the top. It fits in with our kind of wider cattle system, which is just beginning really. But these cows, part of this for us is that the cows are going to go and show the calves the ropes on this kind of grazing before they go off somewhere more difficult. But I realise we're getting off the bracken subject a bit. Probably skip through these slides a little bit. That's some bracken that's been rolled with a bracken bruiser, which a quad drawn bracken bruiser, which we had part funded through FIPL as well. If you want to move on, Rob, I think there's a picture of the quad and the machine somewhere. So what I've heard, and I've got imposter syndrome a bit tonight, but I'll try and push through that. We're really just trying things out. In the past, my dad has sprayed. We're going into organic conversion now, so we're leaving that behind. But he's done mechanical treatment as well with the topper on the back of the tractor, with reasonable success. But I think with both treatments, eventually the bracken comes back. And so really, I think what we're trying to do with we've got the roller basically, so we think the ATV can get to more places than the tractor could safely or semi-safely. And some people say that bruising bracken is more effective than cutting it, because you're knocking the stem over, you're bending it, you're causing it to bleed basically, but not entirely killing it. So the plant's still putting its resources into growing, but quite ineffectively. We did this in, I think it was the very end of June and early July, and we've just done it once. I think in an ideal world, whether you were cutting or rolling, you'd be doing that twice, once a little bit earlier in the summer and once about 6 weeks later. But we found that by the end of August, a lot of this bracken hadn't really stood up again. So we didn't really think it was worthwhile going over it again. But I could, I'm happy to be corrected on that. That's just what we thought at the time. So, I mean, that's about it, really. It's kind of a boring job unless you like driving machinery around. It's interesting to see what Nick and Paul are doing, because no fossil fuel going into that at all, which is a good thing. I think probably I'd like to think that we might be able to kind of open up pathways for the cattle and open up areas for the cattle to get into, and use salt blocks, maybe water troughs, try and encourage cattle into those areas and just see what happens. And so yeah, that's our quadrat. I can't remember just how many quadrats we did. It was only probably less than 10 across the area that was kind of the edge of the bracken and where there's existing grassland or sort of grassy, heathy stuff. So yeah, we're hoping that we can get up there once a year. It shouldn't be too difficult. It's probably a day's work surveying just to see. So we've got some data basically on what we're doing, whether it's effective or not. So we're very much at the start of the process. And anecdotally, there was another thing. My dad is 77. When he was growing up, he reckons that his neighbours successfully cleared bracken from a bit of land just by cutting mechanically and with scythes, and then stocking quite hard with sheep. So I think that would probably tie in with people's mob grazing ideas quite nicely. Probably cattle would be the preference, but I'm sure that sheep have got a place as well.
Thanks, fella.
So hope that made sense.
It did, yeah. Has anybody got any specific questions they want to come into to Adam at this point, or we'll move to Nat?
Hi.
Shout out if you got anything. I can't see anybody and his hands up, so I'm just seeing my screen at the moment. Real. So I think we'll move on then and hand over to Nat. Are you there, Nat?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Brilliant. Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Real. So Nat's down in the Forest of Bowland, so not too far from Janet and Dusty, and I think Andrew's joined us as well now. So in that neck of the woods. So I'm going to move on to your first slide, Nat, and hand over to you.
Right. Okay. Hi everyone. So we are in a higher level stewardship scheme, which we started prior to getting into regen agriculture, and one of the I'm just explaining why we're doing what we're doing. One of the supplements was SP8, native breeds at risk, and up on the hill. So one thing Natural England wanted us to do was to try and trample the bracken. So they did fund spraying for the first 2 years, but access was pretty bad and we really struggled to get on there, and it's not really in our ethos anyway. So we didn't really manage to spray an awful lot, to be honest. And what we did do, yeah, it's had an effect, but it's not really for us anyway. If you want to just check your WhatsApp group, I've just sent a picture of our lings walking up through some bracken, because these pictures were just some I just took the other day. So I've a picture of a few lings walking up through a typical lump of our bracken on the WhatsApp group if you want to have a look at that. I'm not technologically minded enough to get it on the screen right now. I'm sure there's a way. Anyway, so it's quite a hard fell, and our issue is through the summer, for any volume of cows, any number of cows, there's not really an awful lot of forage up there apart from heather and bracken. There's very little grass. So there's not really an awful lot to sustain cows through the summer or winter. We do periodically put them up there in the summer, but only for short periods. Unfortunately, we did have a cow with bracken poisoning. I think we did just save it, but it's pretty. It's not good to see if you do get a cow with bracken poisoning. So we need to get braver basically and get the cows up there more. So what we do at the moment, we actually, the cows and calves are on in-by land, and then when we take the calves off, I don't know, November, December time, we'll perhaps take the cows up on the hill again, and actually we bale graze on the bracken, so the cows can pick around. Obviously the toxicity of the bracken's not there, and so they can scavenge what they can off the land, and also we're bale grazing at the same time. We're trampling bracken, but also the cows are defecating on it. So this first picture is an area where the cows haven't really grazed. It's very dense, dead bracken, very little growth underneath. And I know when I did speak to Alex Bruce, he was, a lot of what he said, it's all about the soil and what life's under there. So I see Nick Rennison's photo, you know, that looks like good grass pasture. There's probably worms and stuff under the soil, whereas up here, if you root into the soil, it's very hard to see any sort of microbiology at all. Very hard to see any insects or anything. So that's a picture of bracken, what's not been trampled, and that's a close up really. There's not an awful lot going on there. So next, Rob. And these are in no particular order. Again, slight greenery, but not a lot. Again, this is an area where the cows haven't been. So next, Rob. And that's pretty much the same again. I literally just had a quick wander around the other day. Right, so this is a bit different. So this is where the cows have bale grazed, and in this area here, obviously when the bale grazed, the density is quite high. We do have no fence cow collars, so actually we held them on this area for a period of time, and pretty much they've annihilated the bracken. There is new grass growth coming through, bit of rush there, and one thing another, but that's with high density. But obviously, you know, it's only for like an hour or two, and then obviously let the cows move on. It's unfair on them to keep them there for any period of time, but the animal density certainly does seem to have an effect. Obviously, as long as they don't start eating the bracken and poisoning themselves. Next, Rob. I love the salt lick idea. Yeah, we should have tried that. So that's just further back from the high density. So you can see, so the cows were bale grazed on this area. What I think, what I'm seeing is it's a slow burner, really. I think the density of bracken is reducing all the while in the areas where we do have cattle. There's a lot more greenery coming through, and obviously where we do up the density, or you know, maybe a couple of days in a row where we have the bales. I basically take a big square bale up every day, but where we do have more density, we do have certainly more impact. So next, Rob. And obviously that area was all bracken. So these are just pictures of where, you know, where typically we've grazed, where we probably have the high density, not necessarily with the collars, but we've just bale grazed, I don't know, basically probably took a bale out in lots of little heaps, and where the cows tend to congregate and poop and whatever else, you can certainly see that it is having an effect. Obviously these pictures were only taken the other day, but I do think the bracken density is reducing, so that's why I think it's just a slow burner. And next, Rob. I don't know if I have many left.
This one a little bit closer.
Yeah, so it's just showing there is grass growth there. I know when I did speak to Alex Bruce, I did say it's about getting the soil going underneath there, and obviously I should dig the soil up. I need to educate myself really, but I should be digging there and seeing if there is worm life. But I think if you can get the worms there, you're onto a winner. And obviously, once you can get an area like that, if you maintain it, you'll probably increase the amount of sort of improvement, if you will.
I think that's your last one. Is this?
Is that the last one? I don't know. They're taking no particular order. Oh yes, just an area where the cows have been not too long ago, and that's where they had quite a bit of. It might have been sprayed that area, right? It's down the bottom right corner. But that's where the cows have had maybe 2 years of quite heavy bale grazing, and it's certainly having an effect. I think is there a couple more, Rob? I do notice foxglove. I assume that's foxglove. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that does seem to be the pioneer species. If you trample bracken, the first greenery you see after bracken is foxgloves. And I don't know if other people get that, but that obviously that is up on the fell. And one more, Rob, I think.
No, that's it. That's
it. Yeah, the only other one was an area of bracken, and there's just a nice little tuft of green grass in the middle of thick bracken, and I can only think it was where a cow pat was, and no, a real small spot. No, it's not on. And obviously, I think where the cows poop and stuff, even on this picture there's a bit of green grass coming out of that cow pat there, and I think it all helps. And it just gives that little local environment for the grass to succeed and not be out competed by the bracken. But yeah, that's all we do. So we bale graze up there in winter, and I think me and Roger are having a plan to maybe split. We typically mob graze, and so we have the cows in one big herd. But this next year we've discussed that perhaps we'll have like a smaller dedicated herd which will stay up on the fell to maybe have more impact up there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments off the floor for Nat at all? James put one in the chat, I can see. Are ticks a problem at all with grazing cattle on bracken?
Well, yeah, I'd say our cows are tick acclimatized. We don't actually treat them for anything. They're getting back in calf. They seem to be doing all right. They look healthy. But I'm really wary of ticks. And obviously it's a carcinogen at the time of year as well. So I'm not particularly keen of walking around in thick bracken. And to be honest, it's quite rough where we go with the quad. So some of it's pretty inaccessible, really. But yeah, ticks are a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Gav. So I'm just a bit of a text switch over. So Fiona's prepared a set of slides. So Fiona and David are there. I will just get your. Do you want me to get your slides up, Fiona, or would you prefer to share them? Say that again, sorry.
It would probably fall over if I tried to do it.
Okay, don't worry then. I've got them here. So
yeah, so if you do slideshow.
You just get going.
From beginning.
Brilliant. So hopefully you should see Fiona and David's opening slide, Bracken's at Hodge Hill Farm.
Yeah, great.
Brilliant. Over to you, Fiona.
Thank you. But it added try to get David involved. So yeah, so this is we've got it.
When you sit back a bit, Fiona, you look at them more nearer.
Sorry, sit back.
Yeah, we can hear you better now. Go for it. Yeah.
Right, okay. So we're managing.
I can't hear Fiona.
Right.
Oh, that's better again.
Is that better?
Yeah,
can you hear
lovely.
me now?
Perfect.
Perfect. Right, okay.
Yeah.
So we've got 75 acres of bracken on Cartmel Fell, and it's about 150 meters above sea level. So it's like Adam and Matt have already said, it's virtually impenetrable, and it's steep, craggy, full of rock. Not really safe to shoot on it. We've managed it on a conservation basis in the last 7 years, and it came back in hand in April 2017. And we're not trying to eradicate bracken. We've also got rare flies on it, and we're actually working with Lancaster University.
Fiona, I'm going to stop you. We can't hear. You keep kind of going in, and if you put your face right up, it's like when you look away, you're drifting in and out. Or maybe it's just me.
No, I couldn't hear. Sorry, we couldn't hear here.
Same here. It's going on and off.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's the matter with the.
That's perfect.
Is that perfect? Right.
Don't move your head.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. So do you want me to start again, or do you think you got the gist of it?
Start again.
Start again, right. It's 75 acres of bracken, which we've been managing on a conservation basis for the last 6 or 7 years. It's 150 metres above sea level, it's steep, it's impenetrable because it's very rocky. And we're trying to manage it, not to eradicate the brackens, because we've got rare butterflies there. And we're also working with Lancaster University to try and assess what sort of carbon the brackens are sequestering, because there's all that dense bracken litter. And the theory is there's already a lot of carbon capture going on. So we don't want to completely destroy that by getting rid of the brackens. So if we go to the next slide, please.
I've got a tech problem now. It won't move on. We'll get it in a minute.
It's perfect sound quality now, just the picture's gone.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, here we go.
Yes. So that's just a small area where we were in August 2017, and literally the brackens are 1.5 meters tall. I actually got lost in that plot and couldn't find my way out. And it's full of rocks, so it's just not easy to walk over. But if you look at the tree sort of in the front middle distance on the right hand side, which is just below the full stop after tall, keep that tree in mind, because then if we look at the next slide, Rob, that's that same tree. So we got the belted galloways in October 2017. So they've been on this land for 2 months here. And that's what they've done to the brackens. And that seems similar to what everybody else has done, except we've not tried to confine them to a particular area. We've let them just go out where they want to go. But what we have done is done broadcast feeding, which we'll explain a bit more later. But you can see that they've got bales there. They've got hay bales there that they're also feeding off. But the other thing to note is there's very little grass in amongst the brackens because it was just so dense, it was deprived of sunlight. So if we move on to the next slide, please. That's a photograph of the same area. That's the same tree on the right hand side. That's what it looks like now after 6 years of just managing it with the cattle. So we've done no spraying, but we have done some pasture topping, and we have done some sprimming. But again, we'll come on to that. So if we go to the next slide.
It's amazing. It's really good.
Thank you. So it's been quite hard work, especially for Dave, because initially, because of the high level stewardship agreement, we couldn't use big bale feeders. So we had to use broadcast feeding, which is just scattering the hay out, as you probably know. So to get that out in the early days, Dave had to take bales on his back and take them into the dense areas of bracken and drop them off. Now it's much easier. We've got a gator, we can see where we're going, and the cows have made pathways so we can get in and amongst. So we're constantly just pushing them into new areas all the time. So I think it's a 3-phase approach. So first of all, it was the broadcast feeding on foot. And then when we could actually see where we could get, we took some of the rocks out of the way and the cows made pathways. So we were able to then get the pasture topper in. And then in more recent times, Dave's just been able to go in with a strimmer with the poly blades on and just clear what brackens he's wanted to get rid of in areas, and made sure that he's left any little saplings or any other pioneer species or anything that we want to keep. So now it's a lot easier. Next slide.
What strimmer was it? Was it like a commercial strimmer that you had?
No, it's a still strimmer, but it's the battery one, because if you're going to do it for 2 or 3 hours, then you don't want to be breathing in fumes.
Right.
So it's just the standard strimmer, but with the poly blades on it.
Good, thanks.
So this is July 19, and you can see that we've opened up areas, but we've got very little grass cover at this stage. So that's after 2 years, because the cattle just trampling it. And I think Adam and Nat and others have commented that there isn't a good grass coverage. There's not a lot of fodder for them there in the first couple of years. And then if we move on a further year, the next picture is July 2020. So you can see the grass is now starting to come back, and that's aided by the fact that we've put the hay down, and so that has seeded it. So it's actually quite strong. The brackens are a lot weaker and a lot thinner at this stage.
On the next slide over.
Yeah, did you hear Dave then?
No, we didn't. We didn't hear you at all, Dave. Sorry. You got to come
sorry.
close, fella.
Yeah.
Closer. And still closer. You've got a funny microphone. Where's your microphone? Is it high up?
I don't know where the microphone is. Shall I say what you were going to say?
Well, we can't hear you now, Fiona. Across a little bit.
What's going on?
There,
There we go.
stay there,
That's
stay there.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, so when the brackens are quite weak and small, we use the strimmer because the pasture topper won't touch them. They're too low for that. So that's why we move on to the topper. To the strimmer, yes, sorry. So what we're trying to show here is that we want to create a mosaic because the butterflies need to hop from patch to patch. So we don't want to clear the whole area, but we just want to open up between the brackens. But just picking up what somebody else said, if you look at the fields to the left, they aren't ours, they're our neighbours. And it took him 8 years to eradicate brackens. And that was by cutting them, 5 or 6 times a year. But we're not trying to replicate that. We're not going for eradication, but it just shows that it can be done. And it also shows how much rock there is in the ground you need to cope, which is why the strimmer is better than topping and stuff. So next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just to show you what comes back. So this is April 22, and you can see we've got the primroses in amongst the bracken litter there. And they support the Duke of Burgundy butterfly. And then the next slide shows the violets, which is what we need for the high brown fritillary butterfly, which we've also got. So if you want to just quickly go on to the next slide. Yeah, so that, yeah, please. Yeah, so that's the violets, and that is what the butterflies feed on, and the larvae is in the warmth of the bracken litter. So, you know, again, we're just trying to create that nice environment for all sorts of species, not just the cows. And then I've got a couple more slides, I think. Yeah, regrowth. Yeah, so that is August 2020. So as you can see, they've not completely gone at this stage, but we have got lots of other pioneer species in there. So we've got thistles and nettles and stuff, but there's lots of other things coming through, plantain and as yarrow, lots of yarrow and stuff. So I've been looking at the PFL posts recently about what people have got, and that's really interesting, isn't it? There's a whole variety of stuff. So we've not planted anything, but there are all sorts of things. And then I've got one more slide, which I'm not sure demonstrates the point. If we can go to the next one. We've been taking shots of Google Maps. So the first one is about 2017-18, and you can see on the left all the brackens. And then on the right, well, you'll probably notice that we've put a building up, but that building is just below where that white spot is on the left-hand side, where there was a ring feeder previously. And you can
Just
see
you said the building, and then it cut out, Fiona. What are you saying about the building?
Well, the building's new, and it to compare to the building is probably where that white spot is on the left picture.
Move across a little bit to the right again, or your left. That's it.
The left, right. So the
Go on.
new building is
Mhm.
just south of where that white spot is on the left-hand picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can see that there's a lot less bracken on the right-hand side than there is on the left-hand side. But there are areas to the north of here that the cattle really haven't got into yet, and it's just quite a slow process. So I'll leave it there because, you know, I appreciate it's hard for you to hear me, but that's just what we've been managed to achieve over the last 6 years.
To be fair, Fiona, we can hear you pretty well. Don't worry. Was that you just coming in with the question?
Sorry, yes.
In with the question?
Go ahead.
Right. Is the building for cattle?
No. We house the cattle are out all year, so part of it is cattle handling, and the rest of it is for storing the hay and machinery.
Right. Okay. We just on this bracken thing. We've got a lot of bracken out on the fell, and I've got a big pasture which previously was a deer park. Now the top of that is quite flat, and I can mow most of it or roll it. But the rest of it is full of rocks, so obviously I can't get on with a tractor or even an ATV. So that's, you know, probably a prime area for putting cattle.
Yeah.
I mean, I mowed a lot of the brackens earlier on this year. I didn't get them all done, but the ones that I didn't mow, probably mid-July possibly, they have actually come back, and I've got a new growth probably about 18 inches high on the areas that I mowed. We probably didn't get them done last year. The year before we cut most of them, and that's really, it's lessened them a bit, but not a lot. I've also got a Bracken roller, like square cast iron rollers, which we can't really pull it with an ATV. The ATV won't drag it through the bracken because the bracken's probably 1.5 meters high at least. And because of the weight of it, we just can't. The ATV won't cope with it. So we can only do areas with that where we can get with a tractor.
We are making provision, aren't we, with Helen and Pasture for Life too.
Yeah. Some horses, John.
We're actually working with Helen right now for the FIPL funding to. Excuse me, I need 2 pairs of glasses on these days. To divide off the rocky areas. We've got quite steep rocky areas which are dangerous for cattle anyway. So we're fencing those off so that we can allow the cattle to go in there free range. We wondered about, and cattle collars were mentioned. The disadvantage might be, and we've got to go into this, there is a license that you have to renew each year. Is that correct? Is that onerous as to how much you have to pay for that, or is it is it an acceptable price for the good that it does, in that you have more control of where the cattle go?
We don't pay a license. We pay a monthly subscription for the sort of network, if you will.
Right, okay. Can I ask how much that is?
I've gone off the top of my head, to be honest.
It's about £28 a year.
And,
So you pay it monthly, but it works out about £28 a year.
and is that for all of your
No,
collars?
No,
For
per collar.
one collar, £28 a year. Right, okay. Thanks anyway for that information. That was lovely, Fiona. You've done really well.
Well, not me, Dave's hard work.
I know. We used to have cousins who used to spend their summer holidays coming up and doing it with a scythe, but it's got beyond us now. It has really, but we're on to it.
You
Okay.
weaken them. Whatever you do to them every year, you can weaken them. So
Yeah.
it might not look like making progress.
Yeah. I think possibly the secret is to get them at the right time of year and to do them twice, as you were outlining. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Question, Fiona, about how many times a year you've been mowing and doing the strimming. I think that's to you, Fiona.
Yeah, I'm asking Dave.
Oh. Move over, Dave.
Initially, I did the pasture topping 3 times a year, and the strimmer I do 4 times a year, and that has got rid of some of it. You know, the bits that I want to get rid of. 4 times a year, that's enough.
Okay. Thank you. There's a couple more questions which I'll just pick up on. Jane said this is food for the soul. I think she just means that the hard work that everybody's been putting in. Holly's asking, what are the risks with bracken poisoning? How common is that? And is there a particular time of year when the risk is high? And I can see Roger Marsden as well, so that's quite handy. We've got him online. So yeah, does anybody want to have just comment about the risks with bracken poisoning and time of year and stuff like that? And Bill's got his hand up. We'll come to you next, Bill. Anyone want to comment on bracken poisoning? Roger? Nat?
Yeah, well, as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen a lot of bracken poisoning, but we certainly have had a few cases at home. My understanding is generally it's the springtime when it's the very young bracken ferns. I think they're more palatable than the older bracken. So I think that's when you're most likely to get it. But equally, I think cattle will eat bracken, particularly if they're hungry. And if it's green, then they can potentially eat it at any time. I don't think they need to eat particularly a huge amount, but it is known to certainly cause bleeding. So they tend to hemorrhage significantly through the gut, and also it's a carcinogen. So if they get bracken exposure over long enough periods, then you can start getting various tumours. But I haven't really come across that very much, but I have certainly seen it where they hemorrhage quite a bit through the gut due to bracken exposure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I can't find where to put my hand up electronically because I don't do Zoom very often. But we've never had any bracken poisoning, and I think why is because they've got plenty of other things to eat. So whilst they've got areas that are grass that we've made grassy, or that we've put fodder out for them, then they don't eat the brackens. They'll only eat it if they've got nothing else to eat. What we do have, though, is a real problem with cows hiding calves. So if you carve on brackens, it's a nightmare because, well, certainly the Belties, they just go and hide them in the brackens, and then you can't find them for 3 days. And when you get hold of them, they're fly covered. You know, they've got fly strike. So that is our biggest problem rather than bracken poisoning.
Wow, interesting. Bill, did you want to come in, chap? I saw you had your hand up, and then
I did. Yes,
interrupted you.
thanks, Rob. So we've actually had a cow, one cow out of many, that was showing symptoms, the same symptoms that you described about. So she had red urine, which obviously is one of the signs of red water disease, but clearly wasn't red water. And she went on like that for a number of years. As soon as we saw what was happening, we recognised that it was almost certainly because she was eating bracken, but she was the only one out of maybe a dozen or 20 animals. And with our cattle, they move around to different sites. So they have access to bracken on some sites, but not others. And she obviously got a taste for it somewhere. And so we had to be very careful. Not once she started doing this, then clearly she was in trouble. But we stopped putting her on sites where there was bracken. And so after that, she went on for 3 or 4 years without showing. She would still occasionally produce the red urine, but she stopped going downhill. She got very thin when it was wet. But the others were fine. They just didn't eat it because, as Fiona said, they had plenty of other things to go up. But it's just a kind of reminder that these things can just boil down to individual animals for whatever reason. You know, you just may have one that gets the taste for it. In Japan, apparently, they like cooking bracken prawns when they're very young. Luckily, it's never caught on here. But you know, that's just a kind of a warning. But you know, we could see that there was some. You know, we were always watching the bracken because we knew it was a potential hazard. So that, you know, when we started seeing signs of them eating bracken, then that's when our attention was drawn to it. So you know, it's just a matter of being vigilant, I think.
Real, thank you, Bill. Jane, thinking about people as always, kind-hearted Jane. She, do you, it's to Fiona mainly, do you have mask when streaming it and coming out in for some reason? So yeah, consider it, Jane. You know, what is your health implications of like and stuff with it, and that probably Adam on his quad bike and stuff like that. So did you wear a mask, David?
No, I don't. No.
No.
Okay.
I may be wrong on this, but I think they're most carcinogenic when they're starting to go brown. You know, when they're more spores, they're letting their spores go and they're more friable. So we don't tend to be cutting or mowing, trimming, whatever at that stage. We're only cutting them when they're young and green and fresh. So I think that lessens the risk, the health and safety risk of, you know, carcinogens and stuff. But could be wrong. That's just what we've decided to do.
Makes sense. Real. Is there any more questions from the floor, or shall I wrap it up? And
could I just ask Fiona a question?
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
Come on in.
Do you think that you'd be able to achieve the same outcome without your mechanical interventions if we just kept the cattle on either for longer or higher density? Or I'm just wondering if you sound like you've done a lot of work to get rid of the bracken, physical yourselves. I just wonder, do you think we'll get similar outcomes with just grazing cattle there? Might take longer, but do you think we could get the same outcome?
So we've got a stream that goes through the land which has been fenced, and we can't get any machinery over the other side. So we've actually got the evidence for that, because we've got the near side where we've got machinery, and we've got the far side where we haven't got any machinery on it at all. So we are lessening the brackens on the far side, but it's a lot slower. And I think it's going to take twice the time to do it just with the cattle. as opposed to supplementing that with machinery.
Okay. Bill, you've got your hand up. Do you want to come in, Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Just a couple more ideas. So we've been doing something very similar to you, Fiona, for a good number of years for the same butterflies, as it turns out, over on Whitbarrow and Hutton Roof. And we're not allowed to feed any hay. What we had got permission to do was to put feed blocks out. So we tried that, and they're easier to transport in and out as well, and they work quite well. But the minute you stop doing it, then the bracken starts to come back again. Another thing we've tried is removing the bracken after it's cut. And obviously that means that you're removing quite a bit of the fertility, and bracken does need some fertility in order to get to the size that it does. But it's really just a matter of keeping on at it. And in the end, I must admit, we've kind of got worn out with it. So places that had got quite good, like yours, are now beginning to go back again. The other thing that we've never tried it, but I feel ought to work, would be liming, because bracken is a plant that likes acid soils, and obviously liming would raise the pH, and then you might have a better. It might not kill it, but at least it would weaken it. I don't know if anybody's here has tried that method.
Anybody put any lime down? It's a little trial for you at your spot, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. One day.
You have.
Just another suggestion, of course, is if you're going to go to all the trouble of removing the bracken, then it'd be much better to have a use for it. And of course, traditionally, it was the bedding material that people used for wintering their cows on. And that my guess is if you could find some method for doing that in an efficient way, then that would give you a reason to keep doing it for long enough to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some really nice little mini balers, these round balers, which would probably work with a quad. And the advantage of round bales is if you're on a slope, you don't have to carry them down.
True, that's true. Oh, is there any questions on the floor before I wrap it up?
Well, I've just got a quick question for Nat. Obviously, we're going to Alex Boosters next week, but what does Alex do that Nat's seen or spoken to him about before we go next week and see it?
I only spoke to Alex on the phone, but he was very much about getting your soil life going. So obviously the worms, so some brackens, you'll see grass growing underneath, so that's a really good sign because you're part way there. But where it's really dense, obviously there's no, there's no sunlight getting in, and that's probably a lot of our fell is that at the moment. But yeah, that's what Alex took. He was soil farm of the year, wasn't he? I think in 2020 or something like that. So it was all about getting the worm life, getting the soil life going, and that'll turn your bracken. I often wonder, so someone might help me here. So they talk about the biological side and the fungal side, and is it right that is bracken more on the fungal dominant side, like forestry in the natural progression of things, or do we not know? I just wondered if that would. I know Nicole Masters talks about it a lot, and I just wonder if often bracken is in woodland, or is it not really related to fungal and biological environments? Silence.
I would think it would be fairly fungal dominated because there is a lot of vegetation that takes a long while to rot down, and that's what suits fungi best. It's the bacteria that like a a quick turnover.
Mm.
But
So getting livestock on there will probably help from a biological point of view. Yeah, I guess a lot of Bracken.
certainly the dung and the urine that they produce would help to get rid of that dense litter layer that Bracken produces. And then, you know, once you've got rid of that, then the grass has got and the herbs have got more of a chance to.
I think, yeah, I think our issue is we've got quite a large area of Bracken, and it's like whether we should focus on a smaller area to have quicker achievements or quicker gains, or we just do it over the whole area and make, you know, small footsteps, and you know, it might be a 10-year journey for us.
From what Fiona says and from what we found, it's better to just focus on what you can cope with and see some progress with that, and then you can move on a bit, you know, with that encouragement. But if you've got a big area and you try and do the whole lot from the start, then, you know, it might be a bit disappointing and dispiriting.
Yeah, you're right.
James put a question about, is there more than one species of bracken? Does anybody know? Or was that a little take home for Jane, a bit of homework?
No, there is only one species, and it's worldwide. It's the same species on every continent.
Real. So I think I'm conscious of time. Is there, so for the guys that aren't able to join us next week in Perth, is there anything that you particularly want us to ask Alex? Because that was one of the sort of intentions today, is to sort of see if it came out. So is there anything? So if you can't think of anything now, but you think of something over the next few days, please like drop me an Amy and Jane a note, and we can ask it. I do know that Alex is managing his breaks, his paddocks a bit differently to really impact the bracken, but we'll save that until we get there and see it, and then share that when we come back. So what we are intending to do is sort of like put together like just a one pager of key things that we pick up from Alex, which we'll share afterwards with everybody, and that'll also form part of Charlotte's educational resource on this as well. So if there's any questions for Alex, or shall I just wrap up? No questions. So really, I just want to say, like, so grateful to Fiona and David, Nat, and Adam. I think Adam's still here. Oh yeah, he is, for sort of like just agreeing to this without very much persuasion. Really appreciate it, particularly get the photos and putting together slides and stuff like that. Really do appreciate it. Do keep in touch with all the stuff we talked about earlier. So ideas for educational resources, ideas for extensions, because as I say at most of the events, it's your project and we're just here to help shape it really for you, and we're really keen to do a really good application for an extension and really get some good stuff going. So the only little thing I've got left to do is we have learned how to do a poll on Zoom, a confidential poll, just to sort of get a bit of feedback about today and stuff like that. So I'm going to launch the poll, which will come up on your screens now. So if you can just answer these few questions, it's just really about the content and the relevance and whether there's been anything useful today. And then, yeah, thanks to everybody for taking the time to come this evening. Really looking forward to spending time with some of you in Perthshire next week. If you could have safe travels, if you need any more information, there will be a confirmed email, little bits of nitty and gritty on Tuesday. And yeah, look forward to seeing you at the events we talked about at the start of the webinar.